All right, it's the weekend here at the Lonely Horde, so it's actually time to make bread too. So we're going to do a funny little thing where when I work in the shop, when I make bread, I'm covered in dust. Is it bread flour? Is it sawdust? You decide. So for our bread, it's baguette-ish. We start with like 715 grams of flour, and I'm probably going to run out, so I've got the bag. And we're at 310 now. I just use the store brand stuff. I've used the expensive stuff before, can't tell the difference. And we're almost there. Perfect. And sort of a heaping tablespoon of salt. A heaping tablespoon of dry yeast. Give it a little whisk. Everything nice and evenly distributed. And then about 2 cups of water, maybe a little over. Mix it with a wooden spoon till you've got like a shaggy dough ball. Cut through the middle, don't just stir. Make sure you get it off the sides. You can see I'm making a little mess already. Now it kind of looks like that. We'll cover it, and then we're just going to stick it in the oven with the oven light on for about 45 minutes. All right, so I know I should probably be working on the braces for those acoustics that are in flight right now, but just got a new dust collector installed. It is awesome, and so I kind of want to play with some things that make sawdust. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to join up some tops today. I've got this curly redwood that I've been sitting on for a while. Really amazing looking stuff. I rough sized it, I don't know, probably a couple years ago now, and it's been sitting drying. Now it's time to really join up these edges nice and tight. And so the first thing I kind of like to do is, it's already in pretty good rough shape. I like to tape the tops together just so that I'm not fighting keeping that together at the same time I'm trying to join them at the same. I like to run them together, so if there's any kind of angle on the blade or the joiner, depending on what I'm using, when you flip it, it'll come together nice and tight anyways. So we'll just take a little bit of tape. We've got it nice and snug up here against the fence. And let's just put this together so it doesn't slide around on top of itself while I'm trying to do what I want to do. So I'm going to use a table saw for this. I find that this does, for this kind of really thin stuff, it's a lot easier to deal with than the jointer. I need to raise my blade just a little bit. And then if I'm not quite dead on, then I use this board that has been jointed and is crazy straight to just sort of touch up the edges. Before I take the tape off, I usually do kind of press it up against the fence, just eyeball it to make sure I didn't have any really weird cups when running it through. And looks like there might be something towards the end here, but not sure that that'll matter. Because most of the top will be towards this side. It looks pretty good. We're going to pull it off and then try to true it up using our sanding block here. Put it together. Yeah. Actually, this looks about perfect. There's just a little bit up there. I'm going to make like a pass or two with the block. I just kind of hold it over the edge here where I've got a little bit of gap, so I'm not just sanding off the top of it. And then I'm going to do the same thing, but kind of flipped on this one. So again, so that if there's any kind of weird angle, make sure joining the right edges. And that's perfect. That's ready to glue up. So here's how I glue stuff up. Table saw is the flattest surface in the shop, so I basically am going to use that to be my surface. Fence is nice and solid. Throw a couple dogs here to keep things tight against the fence. Usually that's about all the pressure I need. Once I've done that, I do come back, move the fence in just a hair, so we're really getting some pressure on here, so that when we glue it, pop it down, and it's nice and tight. So one thing, kind of show you how it's all stacked up here. Just got a piece of plastic so I don't get glue all over the table saw. I try and make sure that my seam is down one of the solid chunks of the table saw. This needs to go in, and this actually could probably use a little bit more pressure. So we're going to bring this in a little bit more. Yeah. That's what I'm talking about there. Okay. Then once I've done that, a little bit of plastic, scrap plastic, has been scraped clean so it doesn't scratch anything. Pop a caul in the middle. Clamp. And clamp. That stays nice and steady, and then I let it sit for a bit. All right, now that we've sort of dry fit everything, let's do the real deal. Just want to double check because, you know, you don't want to goof up here. Yes, I've got my marks on my ends so that I know which way these fold together. I'm going to glue. I just use plain old-fashioned Type Bond 1. Run a thin bead down the end. Sometimes I'll spread it with a stick or something, but I'm just going to use my finger here. Make sure you've got coverage for the whole piece. And then I will just use a quick scraper to sort of pull off the gross excess. There's going to be some squeeze out. Let's not make it ridiculous. Make sure your ends are lined up nice and good. You're exactly where you want to be. Push down so that you're lined up as good as you're going to get. Another quick worst of the squeeze out. All right, now sometimes I'll come back, put a little wedge in there to kind of make sure that we've got the center nice and squoze too. Let's do that. So here we need a little bit of a taller clamp to get over our caul, and just some scrap because this is never going to catch on that edge nicely. Bring it in here. You don't want a lot of pressure, just enough to get a little extra squeeze in the middle. In about 45 minutes, time for our first fold of our bread. So it kind of looks like this. Not a lot of action yet, but we just get sort of a wet plastic. I don't know what this thing is. Bread folder thingy. Come in here, scrape right from the sides, sort of fold towards the middle. And I do that about 5 or 6 times. All right. Put that back on and then back into the oven for another 45 minutes with just the light on. Been about 45 minutes since our last fold. We're going to do the same thing again. We're going to scrape from the sides, fold towards the middle. We've got a nice looking ball in here now. But we just need to get a little bit more rise. So now that we're done with our second fold, we'll toss this back in the oven again with just the light on for another 45 minutes. Back down in the shop. This has been sitting for a while. Let's disassemble and see what we got. All right, and we have a nice, beautiful redwood top. Let's do the other one. Same process as before. This time we'll go through a little bit quicker. We want to tape. So this stuff isn't moving around on us. Bring it so that we're just going to take a hair off with the blade. Pick the blade up, start the dust collector. And looking pretty good. We'll take a couple swipes with the straight edge and the sanding. This one is not as tight as that last one did. And we'll clean that up. And that looks pretty tight. Yeah. All right. So now we're going to do the same thing as before. Let's first get our everything kind of snugged up. Double check our seam. Yes, we look pretty good. Yeah, it's just like that. Okay. So next is plastic. This one in place. Let's do our glue. Got good coverage. Line up our ends. Up it down. too much pressure. Just a little is all we need. We've done our final rise before it's time to start shaping some stuff. Looks like this in the bowl. It's about twice as big as it was. We're going to lay it out here, cut it into like 3 different chunks, and then sort of let those rise a little bit. First thing we want to do is flour our surface. I like to put a little bit of flour on top of the ball as we're pulling it out. Try and keep us from sticking. Once again, we'll handy dandy wet scraper and just scrape the ball out onto our floured surface. All right. Now, next thing is to kind of cut this into 3 equal chunks. I've seen people measure it. I don't need that level of precision. I'm not some pro bakery. I just want tasty bread. So I'll just kind of cut it up into 3 chunks, separate them a bit, and then time to powder my hands. I do wash my hands really well after coming back from the shop. I just want to sort of tuck the seam underneath, get a nice puffy little ball here, and go to one of our powdered spots. Let's repowder this guy over here so that he won't stick. I need some more. Don't be afraid of flouring your hands or the surface. Dough gets sticky, really hard to manipulate if you aren't nice and powdered. All right, now we're gonna toss that back into the oven, cover it, a little tea towel. Again, just the oven with the light on. Gets nice and warm in there, but not, baking hot. We're back, and it's almost time to make our loaf shapes. First thing we're gonna do, we're gonna butter this little tray thingy. Does a great job of kind of keeping everything in shape and cooking nicely. Let's get these out of the oven. They've poofed up a little bit. We're gonna shape them into somewhat baguette shapes. First, let's go ahead and a little more powder over here. And I don't really have much of a technique except sort of just pull it and roll it. So I'm going to try and close up the seam on the bottom. We're going to put that to the bottom of the tray. And then drop it on the tray. Repeat for the other two. And you'll see my imprecision on how I cut these leads to different sized loaves, but I think that's just part of the charm. Now these go back into the oven for a little bit. So these have been in the oven for 10-15 minutes. They've kind of poofed up a little bit. We're going to go ahead and start preheating the oven to 480 degrees Fahrenheit. We got a little tray of water here that'll help steam the bread and give it the extra crunch. So we're going to put that in there before we even start preheating. Oven's heated. Our loaves are ready to go. I do like to put the little slice in there. It's kind of a technique I've never really mastered, but it helps a little, or, you know, does have some aesthetic benefit. You can do a really sharp knife or a bread lamb. I find that the really sharp knife works best for me. Number of slices based on personal taste and size of loaf. And then I give them a little spritz to help with the steam. And then into the oven for 21-22 minutes. I usually do like 22 minutes if the oven hasn't been used for something else first. 21 if it's already been hot for a while. And now we're back down to the shop. Let's unclamp, see how we're doing with the second curly redwood top. We have a top. So now I would usually go, and if I actually had something I was planning on using this for, and cut my outline, run it through the drum sander to get us down closer to our usable height. But for right now, I have no particular project in mind, so it's going to go on the stack. Timer's done. Time to pull it out of the oven, watch the steam. And we have tasty loaves. Oh yeah.